This is Include, a Microsoft Partner Network podcast exploring our shared experiences in technology and business.
When we talk about diversity, people get stuck with what they can see. They think diversity in terms of race or gender, but diversity goes so much deeper.
In this podcast, we're having honest conversations on how to build more inclusive cultures. Welcome back to the Microsoft Partner Network podcast. Today, I'm very excited to host Stephen Hall. He is CEO of District Computers and is Skyping with me from Washington, D.C. Hey, Steve. How's it going?
How are you doing today? And thanks for having me.
So, Steve, tell you've been a longtime Microsoft partner. Give the audience a little bit of a background about who you are and what you're excited about.
Wow, who I am and what I'm excited about. Now, I've been a Microsoft partner almost half my life. Literally half my life. It's 18 years of Microsoft partner and 38 years of age. So, I personally am from a very, very blended community just north of Washington, D.C., where I grew up. Didn't know what I wanted to do as a child. I just knew I wanted to do it on my own terms. Always wanted to be my own boss. I was always on the grind. As a child, I cut grass, I raked leaves, I shoveled snow, I babysat, always did something to make some money to buy my video games or support whatever my baseball card habit was at the time. High school, I went into my first job delivering flyers for Domino's Pizza one summer, took paid internships at the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. I worked as a UPS unloader. I worked at Six Flags and in a doctor's office, throughout my summers. During the day, I would sell candy at school, mix tapes. Well, I know tapes don't exist anymore, CDs, played cards, basketball for money. I mean, it was just always something trying to figure out how can I have a couple of dollars to go buy pizza or whatever it was. And that just flowed in. That was just sort of my DNA to always work, that work ethic. At college, I was doing party promotion, probably more than I was in class at sometimes. Took volunteer jobs in the student-run school lab. And that's really when I stumbled into IT consulting. So a local businessman came into the lab one day looking for some students to write a program on the cheap, presented his opportunity, and offered about $1,500 to write some code. So I turned that same thing back around to him and said we'd do it for $3,000. Then I hired a couple of classmates for about $1,000. Delivered the presentation for him. We nailed it. The guy came back and kept coming back for more work. So that was just a side hustle in the computing space. I didn't understand the business at the time. No vision, no plan. I just had a kick-ass team of programmers and some engineers around me. Knew a lot more than I did, and I was really good with people and finding opportunities and delving in that business space. That's pretty much who I am and where I came from and how I got started as a business professional, I guess you can call it at the time.
So what is your business now? District Computers.
So District Computers actually started out of that. At that time, we were able to make money doing IT, and I wanted to figure out, okay, well, how do we become the next computer company? Michael Dell had his computer company, the great story about being in a college dorm room. He had a last name with 4 letters, ended in 2 L's, just like mine. And I said, we can build computers. We can sell computers. We can fix them, and we can make a huge distribution center right here on the college campus. I stumbled into this volume licensing debacle at the time, and I realized we had to become a Microsoft partner to be able to get volume license discounts on, I believe, Windows 98 at the time. So the very first partner relationship we made was with Microsoft, and then with all the distributors in the United States to be able to sell volume software, because we needed a whole lot of volume software to sell 3 computers at a time. From that point forth, we came forward and didn't sell too many computers, maybe 20, 25 total. But we did stumble into meeting a lot of businesses, and we were helping them with their support. And it became something we were doing every summer on spring break, after school, in between classes. And we were really becoming a business consultant and a VAR, just not knowing we were becoming that. As we matured a little bit, we learned about this great concept called managed services, where people would pay us a flat fee no matter what. All we had to do was deliver services, and we stumbled into managed services about 15 years ago. And that's really been our model ever since. We've become a managed services provider, a system integrator, and a value-added reseller since our infancy.
Got it. Well, we're happy to have you in our ecosystem for so long, Stephen. You're really an entrepreneur at heart. Seems like that's what your mindset is and that's where your spirit is. What have you learned along the way?
Wow. I've learned everything. Once again, I was all of a teenager when we started this business, and I started with a couple of partners. Everything from, if you start a business with partners, have a agreement in place. We just were a bunch of friends in school and said, we're going to do this together, not thinking about the fact that one day we're going to possibly make money and then have disagreements over who's really in charge, who gets to keep what share. One of the partners is doing 0% of the work, but feels he's entitled to 50% of the money because he was in on the original conversation. So the initial lesson I learned was, if you're going to have an agreement with the partner, have an agreement in place. Regardless of what it says, have something written in place. Another major thing that I learned through firsthand experience is get a job first. Get a mentor or get a peer and learn everything you can from them about the field you're in or the field you're trying to get into, unless you're making your own. Learn about setting and managing expectations to any and everyone. You never want to say something, you're going to do something that you can't do. Always underpromise and overdeliver. And most importantly, learn how to become a professional, a manager, a follower, and a teammate.
Talk a little bit about what it means to be a teammate, because that takes empathy and it takes an understanding, right? An understanding of different opinions and voices. And what's your experience been there, and how do you foster those kind of team environments? So
my experience in being a teammate has been from all over. So as a child, I played team sports as well as individual sports. So I've always had to work with others, whether I wanted to or not. And I've always learned that 4 sets of eyes is better than 2. 8 sets of eyes is better than 4. You see things, you hear things, and you will catch understanding that you would not catch as yourself. So for me, it was really easy to be a teammate, both leading and following, knowing when to take the lead and knowing when to sit in the back seat, and knowing how and when to communicate, which has been one of my personal strengths that I've found other people don't necessarily have. As far as in our business, it's been paramount that everyone that is part of this company has a voice and a seat at the table, because they bring different experiences and they bring different viewpoints, and they must know, A, that their opinions count, their views count, and B, they would see things that we don't necessarily see. I can tell you what I see as Steve Hall, but I have no idea what everyone else sees, and I know that I don't see the world the same way everyone else does.
How do you make people feel comfortable in having a viewpoint and valuing those different perspectives?
So internally, what I always tell the story every time we bring someone new in is how we've lost business by me being closed-minded at times. And this is when I was, a lot younger, and I probably still do it from time to time. I've presented what I would feel as a perfect solution or an opportunity for a business, and I've completely missed part of the mark because I'm not understanding that what they view or value or see or expecting is something different than what I thought they wanted. And had I simply listened, this is the very first person that was working with us. It wasn't a partner, but our very first employee. Had I simply listened to what his opinion was, he was spot on, and I just completely ignored it. So from a business that stung, I always tell that story that, we've lost huge opportunity based on not listening to everyone's view. So we encourage everyone to bring value in. We also tie it back to an incentive. If we close business because of something you brought to the table we didn't, you get a piece of the pie. I think it's very important to let everyone know that financially, as well as just the feel good, the anecdotal, everybody's voice counts, and we want everyone's opinion, and we need your opinion. Right, wrong, and there is no right or wrong normally, but right or wrong, we must know what you're thinking, because somebody else is probably thinking the same thing, and it could be that buyer or customer we're trying to sell to.
Now, is it true that you were in a room with Steve Ballmer back in the day?
So it was probably 2011, at the launch of Office 365, actually at the Worldwide Partner Conference. So I shared a newspaper, the Washington Post, actually. Microsoft's Worldwide Partner Conference was in D.C., and we were both on the front cover of, I forgot which section it was. He was on one side bragging about the launch of the cloud and how the cloud is going to take over. He was on the back and I was back to back almost on the other page, and I was talking about how small partners and Microsoft partners are going to succeed so much in the cloud. And we shared that story, and then we were in the room, I think the next morning, I always share the story with him, how he was worth $11 billion and at the face of Microsoft's cloud, and I was worth $11 and the face of nothing at that time. And we maintained that dialogue for years. Just was a really great opportunity to be able to meet, go from a small 4-person firm at the time to being able to know and communicate and even Skype with and email Steve Ballmer.
Well, that's super cool. I like that story. I want everyone to hear it. So what do you think, I'm assuming during your journey, you've had quite a few mentors, and you probably do quite a bit of mentorship. Can you talk about the value of mentorship in your journey?
Yes. So we've had mentors personally, I've had many business mentors, and our business has had mentorships coming in, and we do that. And we've been doing that not since day one, but since early on. And the value is off the chart. Depending on what mentors you get, and I suggest you find as many as you can, just drawing on their learnings, their successes, their failures, and the whys. Meaning, if you're working with somebody who's a mentor that's done a similar services type business, but they have none of the same staff, what did they learn? What did they do? What did they do right? What did they do wrong? Rachel, you know this about me, but not everybody knows. I ask a million questions. I believe no is just the opposite of yes, but no is nothing but a way of getting somebody to yes. So I keep asking questions until I get the right answers. And I ask everything. How did you not succeed, or how did you succeed, and why? Why is it that you were more successful than your peers? And I've asked, and people have been willing to give me as much information as possible. Sometimes they told me stop asking, and that's cool too. But, learning through their experiences has saved me a lot of pain, and being able to provide somebody else with my experiences hopefully will do the same for them. And sometimes it's not even a lot of things I'm dealing with now as a company. HR issues, how to promote better teammates and how to help people raise up from the lowest level to becoming a mid-management and raise up the ranks. Drawing from others' experiences. How did you get through that challenge? What are some things you've done? What are incentives you've done? What are some benefits you give to your people in this world where we're facing healthcare challenges, especially in the United States? I still lean on my mentors. I just think it's super important because it helps you get through a lot of obstacles that you might not be able to get through without potentially making mistakes along the way. And
do you serve as a mentor to others as well?
We serve, or I personally work through SCORE, but I serve as a mentor to actually quite a few business leaders, some students that are looking to become business leaders, some people that are along the CXO executive path as official mentors, and some people, my door is always open, my email is always open through not just the Microsoft community, but through many other communities, and I give as much information as I can because people gave to me, and I feel if they didn't give to me, I wouldn't be where I am, and if I can do anything to help somebody else get up to a higher level, ultimately it helps them, it helps our global community, and that's just what we're here for, to help the next person, whether it's the next generation or one in front of you, get to the next level.
Absolutely. You said SCORE, is that an organization?
SCORE falls under the Small Business Administration of the United States. It's a nonprofit, it's part of the government that helps businesses develop from the infancy to the next step or from where they are to continue to grow. SCORE is they have a wealth of information on starting and building a business and getting from one level to the next, getting mentorships, getting financial assistance. I know that that's a huge program in the U.S., but they do have similar programs in other countries, and I've spoken on some international panels about just mentorship through SCORE.
Oh, that's very cool. That's for the U.S. folks, that's a cool piece of advice. Yep. Thank you. So it's kind of an interesting time, right? The tech industry is changing and getting a little bit of heat maybe. What do you think is going to happen, and what responsibility falls on business decision makers like yourself to help, move us forward? What are you doing, and how do you think that we can kind of make it better?
Well, I look at that multiple ways. I think that as the communities or the world is becoming more cloud connected, the world is becoming smaller and blending. that the ripple effect of that is one that's huge, and I would think every business would care. What I mean is that our buyers, our suppliers, our vendors are mixing, and their needs are changing. And if we're not as diverse as we are, we're not speaking to some of the people that we're potentially selling to. It's not just me selling down the street now. We're selling our solutions globally, and we need to make sure that, we're speaking to a wider audience. And if we all look the same and we all talk the same, and we all are very narrow-minded and focused on what we sell to, unless we have a very specific vertical, we're missing a lot of the potential audience that we may be selling to or buying from. So I think as a business owner, from the business perspective, it puts us in a position of strength to have as much diversity from within. And I think also when we talk about diversity, people get stuck with what they can see. They think diversity in terms of race or gender, but diversity goes so much deeper. You're talking about socioeconomics, background, where you're from, how you even dress, how you choose to speak, or the music you listen to. I think that all of those are factors that people need to consider, and even more in diversity. And I think the more dynamic and the more mixed up of a team you can have, whether it's from the leadership side or from your teams within, it puts you in a position to be able to support and to engage with a widespread audience and understand some of the needs that they may have, and some of the challenges they may have if you're providing solutions. And that's something that we look for always. I hope and I encourage other business leaders to do the same, and make sure when you're raising folks up the ranks into the leadership, you're having people that have different views than yourself, because if not, they're going to all look like or sound like you, even if they, are a little different. And that will make your company more successful.
Right. I mean, it takes work to actually go outside of your normal recruiting practices, to mentor people internally and nurture somebody so that they can get to senior leadership. It's a real discipline and intentional way of creating the change that we want to see, right? And it sounds like for you it's a priority, and you're doing that in your hiring practices and in how you build out the careers of your employees.
That is, and it's part of, like I said, it's part of our DNA, part of my DNA personally. But one of the things that it does scare me is that, and I want to make sure that the hot topic right now, there are a lot of hot topics: women in technology, minority leaders. I mean, look at Microsoft, Satya Nadella. He's a little bit different than the Bill Gates and the Steve Ballmer before him, in case we haven't noticed. There are a lot of women leaders that are getting the position or title of leader. I just hope that these are not symbolic hirings that are just checking a box off for a company, and that the company and industry is really changing to address the concerns and needs of the leaders, of the voices, to make sure that the company cultures are changing and that their voices are heard from a leadership perspective, from things that they would like to see, things that would benefit not just them, but the person behind them. And that's one thing that's always is in the back of my mind or the front of my mind, especially in, not just the Microsoft community, but the tech community. I for a long time I felt that I was a rare bird. There weren't that many people that looked like me at the panels that I sat on, at the advisory councils and meetings that I attend. And I know that, yes, I want to represent, for the reason I was there, tell my story, tell the story of other businesses that are like mine. But at the same time, I know that if I was to drop a ball or make a mistake, the next woman or the next minority might not even get a chance to get in the door. So I think it's uber important that these people are not hired just to check a box, but they're given a chance to succeed, and they're given a fair chance to shine.
Yeah, it's kind of 100%. How do you know, though? I love what you said, that it kind of starts with the culture. And what's really happening at a company when you can take a look at their mission, their recruiting practices, and what their actual vision is. Because what you're talking about, you're right. I do think that people sometimes are hired literally to make a quota, right? But it seems like you might be at risk to get called out for that these days. And it's not quite an answer to say, oh, it's a pipeline issue or something like that. That's not true. Again, it has to be really intentional, and it has to be part of the culture. It has to be something from the foundation, or else it's just going to seem really fake. I'm reading Satya's book now, and his story is just really beautiful. And as an employee, I know that the culture he's trying to create, even though we're not perfect by any means, we have quite a bit of work to do when it comes to our diversity goals. At least I know he's coming from a place of true honesty, and that we're trying to do something to make it better. And so I think as a leader and those that are listening in the Microsoft partner community, leading by example and showcasing how important that is for your business is absolutely essential. You know, Steve?
Well, I agree 100, and you're not the only one reading the book. It's literally in my left hand right now. I wish that you all could see this right now. I ordered 2 copies. I tried to get an autographed copy. Amazing read, for one. But I really think that having the conversations, just discussing, what we do now, we have an open hour. We try to do it daily, but it gets done a couple of times a week. Just giving people an opportunity to talk about what's going on. If they want to share something, they can. If they don't want to. Things that are going on, things that they want to accomplish. Sometimes it's business, sometimes it's just personal. And just giving people a chance to tell their story, because without understanding other people, you're never, ever, ever going to really feel them to the point that you know where they're coming from. And I think a lot of the stereotypes are that, oh, okay, well, that's this kind of person, or that's that kind of person. They don't know anything. We say that because we just don't know any better, and ignorance is just easy. But giving people a chance to speak is what we've done. I've seen some of our people that we work with, some of the companies we support, that have changed a lot from being a very traditional company to one that's changed the way they operate. Often they also have done the same. They've given their people a chance to speak and be heard and have conversations, and they've fostered positive conversations about things that are going on that are not necessarily just work, but letting people express themselves. I've seen that work there. We typically only work with customers that have a vision to support and support and foster diversity. We've grown to a point where we can choose who we want to work with, and we try to not to work with or be involved at all with people that are doing things that we don't agree with. If you're in diversity and inclusion is not part of your DNA, we really don't want to work with you anyway. And that's something that makes us feel good that, we can sort of turn that business away.
It's the small things. Small things like that can go a really big way down the line. So that's amazing. So tell me something. What do you think I really like what you talked about, an open hour, but if partners are listening, what are some practices that they can pick up? What are some tips that they can do today to foster a more inclusive workplace?
I think the big one is giving folks time and a forum where they can talk about what's going on. Because there are so many things affecting us in this world today, so many outside factors and inside factors, and so many things that most of us can easily dismiss because, it doesn't impact my day. It doesn't bother me. I might not understand the impact of how a new regulation, or I might not understand the fact that, let's just talk about you and I. I get a job, you get a job. I might start at 100,000, you might start at 48,000. That's a big wide gap. But the point is, I might not even be aware of the fact that we're doing the same thing and you're getting paid a lot less. And I think that if those are not heard and talked about in some way, change is never going to happen. So starting the conversations, and the conversations have to be started and held so people are aware. Because I work a lot of times with in the tech space, helping to change policy. I work with Voices for Innovation and as well as some other groups. And I think that ultimately to change policy, you need these issues to be heard, but you need people that cast votes and people that are engaged in the business community to be involved. And if we're not talking about them, and it's only a small subset of people talking about them, they're not going to be heard. There's no change that's going to be done. So we have to talk about these issues, and they have to be more readily spoken about to raise the awareness. When awareness is raised, voices get heard. When voices get heard, things get changed. But it's not going to be changed if we're not talking about it at every single level.
So basically, speak up.
Yeah, speak up.
Speak up. And I think, with a lot of things that are going on right now, people are feeling more empowered now more than ever, I would say. So I love that piece of advice. I love for businesses to not be scared it can be intimidating to touch on these topics, but now is the time. There is enough energy around making change that these small things, even like an open hour, anything like that, can go such a far way in your culture and make your employees think that you care about their own well-being. And that goes a long way as well. So really great to talk to you, Steve. Thank you so much for being on Include. We're really happy to have you.
Hey, thank you for having me, and you have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Include. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think. And please join the conversation on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter at MS Partner.